Fellow tennis nerds, I hope all is well. I'm here with a guest who's been here several times before, iconic coach Rick Macci. Today we're going to talk about US Open and what's cooking in the academy over there. How are you doing today, Rick?
I'm doing great. I'm glad to be here. We're going to have a lot of fun and talk about a lot of good stuff.
Yeah, so we had a little bit of drama in the tennis world now ahead of US Open with the Sinner and the doping situation. It wasn't like he was freed, of course, but some players are a bit not so happy with it. Have you seen that? Have you followed the situation?
Yeah, just briefly. I don't know a lot about it. To me that becomes a very slippery slope. You know what I'm saying? And the fact that he is at the top of the mountain, then some people might think, okay, how did he slide out of this or whatever when they don't really know the facts. So for me to chime in, I don't really know enough about it. Um, So then, because they always then look at Halep, how she got the book thrown at her and another book and another book thrown at her. So that becomes tricky. So I don't really know enough about it, but I'm sure we haven't heard the last of it.
No, and I'm sure that will kind of be forgotten when the U.S. Open starts. I mean, he's one of the favorites. We have Novak, of course, making Olympic history, at least in his own career. Now he has everything, pretty much won everything. Do you think he's going to be inspired, Novak, going into the U.S. Open to win another one?
Well, I think he's inspired when he gets out of bed first thing in the morning. You got to remember when we're talking about the greatest player ever to hold a racket, because the numbers don't lie. He's wired different. So to ask if he's going to be inspired, absolutely. To me, it always comes down to his health. To me, that's the whole thing because people know who's on the other side of the net. And as you know, 3 out of 5 sets, that's a different animal. 2 out of 3, there's a few moments in time, you get your serve in, you break. That's very different than even a 1,000. The Grand Slam is a different animal. And if he's healthy, he's definitely one of the favorites. You know what I mean? And uh, and everybody knows that mentally to be able to go this for 5 sets, if it goes 5 sets, that's why you saw back in the day Federer, Nadal, Djokovic, Murray. You could almost mail it in that they were going to be in the semis, and people just didn't jump in and win Grand Slams like maybe on the women's side, where 2 out of 3 and maybe it's not as dominant. So, yeah, Joker's one of the favorite, but before you ask you who my favorite is, it's the Spanish magician. It's Alcaraz. I just think that his last loss, which is okay because there was a lot that went on after the Olympics. Uh, I look at these things different. I don't look at it as confidence, feeling good. I look at it as motivation to dig deeper, try harder, work harder. I look at it different where the general public, they always get in, follow the leader. And I've done this eyeball test with this Alcaraz guy for 4 years, and everything's kind of coming to fruition as we talked about him many times. So he's my favorite. But listen, you got to throw in Sinner and Joker also.
Yeah, the Alcaraz racket break got a lot of attention on social media, and sometimes the issue with social media is that they pick up on the wrong things, right? And they keep repeating them over and over again. And it's just since he's never broken a racket publicly, as far as I know, before people really put attention to that. But as you said, and I think it was a good point, is that he might actually use this loss as fuel instead of putting himself down in any way.
Absolutely. So even though he's down a break, no pun intended, okay, he's down a break after breaking the racket. Listen, that shows you the perfection, the passion, the desire. You know, if it's on a regular basis with anybody, that doesn't work. But because first time on hard court after playing on clay, there's a lot of other things going on, and he didn't play anywhere near his ability, and he's playing an athletic guy in Monfils. So that becomes a narrative of him doing that with the racket. But I look at it differently: passion, determination, how bad he wants to win, what he expects from himself. And it got to the point where he just got frustrated. And I think it's good to let it out like that. And people should look at it as a positive and not read into anything else because that's the way greatness is wired. And you've seen that from Joker. You've seen that from other champions throughout her career.
Yeah, even Federer once against Joker, and I guess the one guy that can maybe say that he has not broken rackets publicly is Rafa Nadal, I would say.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Whether you show it or don't show it, they all feel the same. You know what I mean? And even a great John McEnroe, he got a little chippy sometimes. So yeah, I don't read too much into that. But if someone did stuff like that on a regular basis, and you and I saw that over a period of time, you would think they're going to check out at Publix during the match at some time because they don't handle the highs and lows that well. But he's already proved his mettle at this young age, how mentally strong he is, and what a great competitor he is. He doesn't have to prove anything to Rick Macci, that's for sure. When I look at this guy play, and that just shows you how bad he wants to win, and he just let it out.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's a great way of putting it. If you saw this from one of your students at the academy, how would you react to that as a coach?
If someone did that, um, well, first off, I think their parents would react different because they're the one buying the racket. Okay, the parent might react a little different. Okay, um, I wouldn't want them to do that, but I'd have to know in what content they did it. Long point. They should have won the point three times. The person got out of jail, won the point. It just depends on the situation. I love passion. I'd rather have that than someone asleep at the wheel. That shows me they're a great competitor. But like anything else, there's good habits and bad. And you don't want that to be a cornerstone where when things don't really go your way in crucial moments, you're getting upset. Whether you're smashing a ball at the fence, or breaking a racket, or you're screaming and yelling, how you control negativity will determine eventually how successful you are.
100%. Do you have any other outsiders that you see on the men's side before we maybe move on to the women's side that can maybe win the title? Zverev, possibly. We have Popperin winning a Masters title a little bit from out of nowhere. Can he be a threat at least to go far? So, what are your thoughts there?
Absolutely. I think it depends on two things. I think it depends on uh, other people getting injury, okay, and the draw. People don't understand how that changes everything. The draw. Not that you need an easy draw or tough draw, because sometimes the tougher the draw and you get through it, you build a lot of positive momentum. But uh, the wild card for me, if I could pick someone, would be Corda. I keep staying on this bandwagon. I've said it for 3 years. He was the outside guy looking in. Now he's kind of made more of a move. I think he's more of a later bloomer because his game's a little more complicated. All right. So I would take Korda uh, on the men's side, the one to look out for. But listen, Zverev can beat anybody on a given day, especially if these guys with a great serve are hitting the corners, okay, and serving just off the charts that day. They can beat you. The problem is, can they do that on a regular basis, without getting upset, by another player? And that's why they're not at the top. They're making a cameo. They show up once in a while, but I think the three I mentioned, they're by far the leader in the clubhouse on the men's side. But if I would have a dark horse, I would go with Corda.
Good one. I like you sticking to your guns. It's nice not to change your picks. I really appreciate that. Iga is obviously like one of the main favorites, world number one still. She had a loss to Sabalenka now, so that's maybe something that hurts a bit, and she's not as comfortable on hard courts. She also said something about the length of the season. Is that something you agree with? Like that the season is overall too long for the players, that is too much tennis happening in one year, especially an Olympic year, of course, but it is something you think about as well?
Well, maybe, but let me back the truck up to the Iga thing. She's my favorite to win the Open. And you got to remember the tournament in Cincinnati. And this is what the average fans don't understand a lot. The court was a little quicker than it's going to be at the U.S. Open. And that bodes well for Sabalenka. You still got to deliver the goods. You can't mail it in. But her clean firepower off the ground and her serve, it's going to squirt a little bit more through the court. Now, even though grass is super fast, that's a whole different bounce. People don't understand that. So I think Iga can play on hard courts great. But if it's a little quicker, it's easy for other people to kind of get into her forehand a little bit. And then she might make a few more mistakes. Then you know as well as I do, you start trying too hard, you get out of your comfort zone, you start making errors, then the mental kicks in, the confidence on the other person kicks in. So there's this domino rippling cascading effect that happens in a tennis match. So but to answer your question about the length of the season, the players can pick and choose. The problem is now they feel I can't pick and choose because I got to defend points, or if I'm playing bad, I got to get back on that merry-go-round and play. Um, that's a tricky one, and I think they're going to have to address it. But there's so much money involved and so many sponsors, and they have the tournaments. I don't see it changing because it's such like any other sport. It's such big business like NFL football. It's like people get injured, they add more games. So it's a whole different thing. Uh, so yeah, you got to be real careful with the schedule because it's so physical. And then what people don't understand with tennis, very different than other sports, maybe in the United States. You're traveling around the world. That in itself is very mentally tough on your body. Forget your mind and your health. We turn on our TV set, we see them out there battling, and they lose. They don't really know why, but there's other mitigating factors that determine that. And so that's why when you look at this Djokovic guy, the Serbian sniper, there's a lot of stuff that goes into this to become great, because some people don't like to travel. Some people, it affects them. You get sick easier going from place to place. So is the season too long? For sure.
Yeah, make good points. When it comes to the American women at the top, like we have Pegula, we have Coco Gauff, last year's winner. Do you think that they have a good chance at going deep in the tournament? How are they playing right now?
Absolutely. Let's start off with Pagula. She doesn't get enough credit. She doesn't get probably enough love, even from myself, because she's just the best vanilla of all time. There's nothing, you know, but she's so fundamentally sound. She moves well. She's calm. People don't understand that. That's a wild card in sports. You have that calming skill. She has that genetic calming skill. I saw that long ago. And she can take the ball early and hurt you off the ground. So she's definitely always going to be a threat. That would be amazing if she could come through. I think she would be one of the favorites. Coco obviously won it last year and she was on a roll. But listen, we've talked about this many times. An Olympic sprinter with a racket in her hand, her backhand's better than her backbone's better than her backhand, and she has one of the best. Uh, the slice serve is trending kind of like Serena. I don't know where the double faults is going. I haven't looked at this biomechanically. Her little brother's in our camp, a great athlete. Her little brother's the number one number one middle school quarterback in the United States. You talk about an athlete. Whoa. Much better than Coco, believe it or not. This kid's like amazing. And he plays tennis just for the heck out of it. And he crunches everybody. He's such a good athlete. But Coco, the forehand, when you're confident, as you know, you might go forward a little bit. You might confidence is a fleeting thing. It's a slippery slope. Taking a little earlier, back foot. It's a tricky thing. And the forehand, when she's not confident, you know, it becomes a little dodgy. The contact point wavers. She moves faster than anybody. So when she hits a bad shot, she has enough makeup speed to save the day. And when you got to hit another ball against her, that some people don't like that. Um, so hopefully she can get back on track, but she would definitely, if she gets confident and on a roll, but it could flip the other way. She might think she's the anointed one. She has a lot of points to defend. I don't know how she's framing it up in her mind, if she's putting too much pressure on herself, but hopefully, but you got to remember, she's so young. This is irrelevant that we're talking like someone two in the world. She definitely would be one of the favorites for sure. Now, my dark horse is Mahova. Okay, I know she's had injury. She's probably uh, kind of the forgotten one. But listen, she gets a little confidence, a good draw. I love this girl's game. I just wish that she could play for a long period of time and get that mental strength because she can make you very, very uncomfortable. Anybody, even Sabalenka, she can make everybody on the. She's kind of a little bit like Ash Barty in a lot of ways. She can chip it, rip it, dip it. She can roll it. She can do everything in her volleys. No comparison to the best on the tour if she can get in, their fundamentals. So that would be my dark horse. But the two Americans, I definitely Coco and Pagula. But all that being said, Danielle Collins has the firepower. You never know. She could feel no pressure. Her last U.S. Open. And sometimes when you feel like, okay, I'm not playing next year, you hit it earlier, you take more chances. And she's such a big hitter. She can play through anybody, anytime, anywhere.
Yeah, it's a good shout. I think that she has showed this year that it's almost sometimes a relief to be like, okay, it's my last year. I can just play all out, right? And it's really helped her game, I think.
Yeah, your perspective changes. You know what I mean? Like whatever. It's like when someone serves the ball to a club player and it's a half a foot out and you go out and you just rip it. You go, why can't I do that when it's in? Because you didn't care. You let it happen. And unfortunately, in junior tennis and club players tennis, you sometimes get in a box. And that's why you play better against better people and you play worse against worse people, which is the exact opposite. You should play worse against better people because they're better, and you should play better against worse people because you're better. But everybody has that one all backwards. You know what I mean? It's all how you perceive it. So who knows? She could be dangerous.
Yeah, and it again shows the mental part of tennis how important it is. I mean, something we've talked about several times on the podcast already, but it's just shows like the trend in a match, the confidence you're feeling ahead of a tournament, and then you have maybe the draw as well, like coming in where you see that okay, I have an easy draw, confidence maybe builds, or I get like a nightmare draw, and you're feeling like it's going to be uphill, and then that takes over your mental game as well, right? That you're in an uphill mode, kind of.
Yeah, and it's just like some of these people go through qualifying, like Lulu's son at Wimbledon. Okay, I coached her at age 11. She's probably had over 500 hours of privates from me through her junior career. ATP forehand, ATP backhand, great technique on the serve, good ball striker. Mentally, it's taken her a while. Okay, athlete, went to college for a year, but she has firepower, but she was 1 point away, second round of qualifying at Wimby, of being out. And here she is, a life changing experience, gets the quarters, beat Rana Konyu on her home turf. Now she's getting right into main draw. You know what I mean? It's crazy how one word, one moment can change someone's life, not only in sports, but in the game of life, what you hear. And she was 1 point away from being out in the second round of quali, and look what happened after that. And you see this all the time. Rana Konyu won the U.S. Open. She qualified a couple years ago, went all the way through, bang, and didn't lose a set. Is she
It's
was she
crazy.
better back then? I don't think so. She's better now in her tennis, but mentally, she obviously probably felt different back then, a little bit.
Yeah, it's all circumstances and how you deal with them, right? Like some people can take a hit to the chin and then be up straight away and do 100% whatever, or but some people get a bit more broken down by a loss or by something going not their way, right? So I was watching a match yesterday. It was Leila Fernandez was in the U.S. Open final, and she was like one first set 6-1, then loses a very tight tiebreak and against Anna Bogdan, a strong Romanian player, but still ranked, 100 outside the top 100. And then she goes down 5-0 in the third set because it's like that mental part of losing that tiebreak puts you in a weird state sometimes where you can't play the third set. Like, and then she started fighting her back, but it was too late. So you see those like losing that second set tiebreak is such a mental test for most players. It's something you've seen as well, maybe.
Absolutely. First off, I love that what you just said. I didn't see that score, but it cuts both ways. The other one, she's out the door and then she wins the tiebreaker and she takes a little earlier, feeling better. I don't hope I can win. Now I expect to win. instead of thinking Fernandez did good in the last tournament in Cincinnati, whatever. And then and that's why these guys at the top, people don't realize how mentally strong they are. I don't want to say anybody's perfected the ideal performance state where they have that intensity and calmness. You can't really picture Djokovic, especially the last 10 years, doing something like that, or Alcaraz, or, even at a young age, checking out like that. There might be a moment, but not like that. I know men's it's easier to win a point with the serve, but that's a great point because nothing has changed. It's still a ball, a racket, a net, and now we're playing one set. But your mind gets caught up in the past, and it changes everything. And then, when things start to change in your head, you're dead, especially because with the feet. And then you start pressing, and that's what sports is all about. There's momentum changes, and who can handle those moments. And it's even more prominent with the guys because things happen so quickly, and it's all about key moments with the guys. Everybody has talent. Everybody can rip it. A lot of the matches are always, very close, but usually the better players win. Guys like Federer, Nadal, Joke, all these guys, they lost 45% of the points when they played a match. That's a lot. People think they probably only lost 20%. They lost 45% but their winning percentage is in the 80s.
No, it's
And
a very good
and
point.
so that shows you how much it's mental. And it's even like that in junior tennis to some degree, club tennis. It's a lot of the key moments, how you manage that. And it's all perspective.
Yeah, and in this match, I took it as an example because I watched it last night. But it was like also Fernandez, who takes the ball really early on the baseline and always tries to direct pace. Like she's a pretty short player, so obviously she needs maybe lose her tension, tries to take the ball early, give the opponent less time. But she doesn't. She didn't change her plan. Like when it wasn't working, her shots were like going out, like sailing a bit for whatever reason. She didn't change her game plan, and I think that's one of the more important things for a player, developing player, or existing already on the tour, to actually have a plan B, maybe a C one. Is that something you work with your players like on, like what happens when plan A fails? What do we do? What's the next one?
Well, I think, yeah, it's a little more prominent on the men's side because they use the slice more and maybe the drop shot more and they volley more and they have to have more tools in their toolbox in general. You know what I'm saying? But you just made a great point. People are kind of locked, loaded, ready to launch. They do one thing, they rip it, and that is your game. You don't want to change your game, but you do want to modify it. You do want to make some adaptations to your game, but I don't think you can picture Fernandez, going into zone 4 with heavy topspin like Rafa. Now, could she sprinkle a couple in there to take the temperature? That's what I tell all the kids. Take the temperature. Let them drink the water. And even if they drink it, that doesn't mean they'll do it the next time. So you just don't try harder, and harder because you'll probably be out the door real quick, you know? And that's why you got to love Alcaraz. He has a lot of things on the menu to order from, and it's subtle because at the end of the day, you still got to play your game. You don't change your game. You never change your game. That's what people say. You modify it. You kind of you probe a little bit, and if you're going to go down, at least go down more surgically with a razor blade instead of just saying, "Well, I hope it turns around." But then again, you have to be trained more at a young age uh, to think like that and develop those tools. You know what I'm saying? Like I have a young player who's 8 years old. She's the best 8-year-old in the world, Vlada Haranchar, and I want her. I want the drop shot to be her best friend. I want the slice to be her best friend. I want her volley to be her best friend. I want her to take a second serve, rip it in the corner, and come in. Okay, that's what I tried to get Venus to do, and she did do that at 14. But then when she got on the tour, she kind of just wanted to athlete her way around the court. So, because as well as I do, the girls are going to kind of do what they do. You know, bang, corner to corner, rip it, take it early. And if you're confident, you can beat anybody. But the more options you have, here's another thing. It matches up better with people that are faster or quicker or play with more spin or hit flatter. You can diffuse it, okay? But it brings calmness because if you're nervous or mad and you keep playing your game, you're going to miss because you're not practicing nervous and mad. You don't practice under that. You practice free and see what I mean? So, anybody listening to this, that's a great question. But I try to get all the kids to have all those tools, but you definitely need your own identity. This is how you play. This is your identity. You're not going to do a 360 because if you did a 360, you'd do worse. But you got to do subtle little, adaptations to your game. But you got to have those tools before you even get into like tournament competition. And then you got to have the belief. And that comes through repetition. And I create practice matches where I make them do these things. And the kids don't like to do it because even though it doesn't matter the next day who won, they're so caught up in the moment, and that's the biggest problem in junior tennis. No one cares. The next day. It's all about junior development, not junior final destination, and no one cares about that. But the kids and the parents, they're so into the moment, and if you're not getting better and working on your game, you're getting worse.
That's the amen to that. When you work with a junior player, how or like a really young one, like you said, 8-year-old here or 10-year-old, how quickly do you see like a style? Like, where do you start owning a style, or do you see it like inherent in their personality, or is it something developing slowly, or is it already there? Like, what's your
Yeah.
perspective on that?
Okay. Well, first off, at 8 years old or 10 years old, nobody has a style. You know what I mean? You don't have a style, because the problem is you can try not to lose if you're kind of mature and you run well and be one of the best players in the country. If you try not to lose. And people will go, "You're a wizard. You're smart. You understand the geometry of the court." I mean, the other person's hitting little marshmallows to you. They're like cupcake coming over. You know, what I try to focus on is this before I get into the style. Biomechanically, if they want to change, I try to change the technique because the weapons that you're taught at a young age, they're going to stay with you forever. If you're going into war, I'd rather have an AK-47, okay, than a ping pong paddle. But a ping pong paddle might win in the 12 and 14s. You could be doing a lot of paddling with that. So the point is the technical determines everything. These weapons that you see down the road. One bad grip, one crazy backswing, okay? I mean, you don't think that if you could back the truck up like Coco would have been taught a different forehand. I'm not saying the grip is bad. You can play with a Western grip, but the take back and everything is not where it really should be. So my point is, you could be getting away with it and think you're improving and winning, but for the pros, that might not be the best way, especially when we know speed becomes a premium and stroke mechanics is at an all-time high. So the first thing I do is the technical part off the ground. This is what people have to understand. Not a wrong way or a right way, there's a better way. And you should look at some of the best strokes of all time, even if you played with one hand, and there's no one close to Stan the Man from Switzerland. I mean, his biomechanics are by far. Brian Gordon and I have studied this so much. There's no one even close to that. And then you got some of the best two-handed backhands that you should look at, and some of the best forehands. And you should be what we call in the neighborhood. And then you develop your own style, whether you're going to invert the racket, whether you're going to, there's all kinds of different interpretations, but you want to be in the neighborhood. You don't want to take your racket back to Alaska, then to Ohio, then to Germany, and then back to the contact point, but you have enough time in the juniors. So the mechanics are at an all time high. Unfortunately, the mechanics can determine your style. You could be with the wrong coach. I'm not saying it's bad. He might want you to play closer to the fence than the baseline and hit the ball 8 feet over the net with heavy topspin. You're developing a personality that, sure, maybe patience, but if you do that, you better be able to run. I mean, you better be a scorer on steroids if you're going to play that far back and run. Because people say, well, look at Rafa, but he could run. Federer could run too. He developed a different style, right on the baseline, cleaner forehand. I'm not saying one's right or wrong, but you got to know what genetic base the people are bringing also. You know what I mean? You can't get someone to play like thoroughbred if they maybe are limited in some areas. That's why I had the Williams sisters stay on the baseline, take it right off the bounce, use their speed offensively. But I wanted that same thing with Sharapova and even Kennan. That's kind of how I train all the girls. You know, to control the center of the court, cut the court, take the ball early. So I make their style, but you better have decent mechanics so you don't have to keep falling backwards and all that stuff. And the guys, if they some like to come to the net more and some don't like to come to the net, the ones that don't like to come to the net, I want them to come to the net more because I know when they're running the show, they're not going to do it. I want people to be uncomfortable and develop because when it's all said and done, they're going to make their own decision. So when we get into a certain style, I think if you look at Djokovic, Alcaraz, and Sinner, they you would almost say they all have similar style, but they have subtle little nuances with the stroke, subtle, but they're both all three are fundamentally rock solid off the ground. Maybe they might have a little better serve, even though they get to the point differently. But one, the Spanish magician, there's more tools in his toolbox. He's missed more drop shots than both those guys combined from age 6 to 13 than anybody. And whoever coached him didn't say, "What are you missing that for, you knucklehead?" They said, "Keep doing it." And that belief is baked in extra crispy. So this is a tricky thing with junior development and the art of building a player. And when you build a player or develop a player or develop a style, it's all about the future. The problem is now you got to deal with the parents and the kids because they want results right now, you know. And I could tell you 15 people right now, number one in the world in the 12s and 14s. You'll go, Rick, I've never heard of them. You know, I could even do that with the 18s. You never heard of them. It's not where you start, where you finish.
I think that's a very good point and something for especially tennis parents to listen to. And also the thing that you might have to sacrifice if you're working on like biomechanics or you're working on sorting out a kink in your game as a kid or a junior, you might have to sacrifice some losses. And it's worth it, right? It's worth that part of the journey because otherwise, if you let's say you play a pushy style, you can keep winning matches, but you might be like pushing the ball, which will only lead you to an like a dead end at the end. Like this, you can't go further than this because the style or your lack of technique will hold you back, right? And I think that's a great point that you make.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and if people don't want to change, then if I, okay, the one thing that's going to happen, the speed of the game as you go from 12 and 14, when you go to 16, 18 college pro, like any sport, the speed of the game changes. The crazy thing about tennis, it's so mechanical based. You got to run. It's not like golf. Okay. And then you got to get on balance. And then you got a handful of grips. And your technique has to respond to the ball you're receiving and then the ball you're giving. It's the quality of the consistency that you can respond back. You know what I'm saying? And most of the guys are obviously in the neighborhood. Some that's why some are better on clay, some are better on hard. Some don't even want to do anything with grass, you know. They don't even want to mow their own grass, you know. So why is that? Why is that? You know, it's because the mechanical part changes a little bit with the surface, as you said about Iga. She's not as good on hard court as she is clay. Or then you got this Nadal guy and Federer guy and Joker guy, and now even Carlos. Doesn't matter. See, but that all started long ago. That didn't start at age 20. They were what I call in the neighborhood. But a lot of people don't understand this. Most coaches don't. They see what they want to see. They could be winning for other reasons. They're super fast, or they're great competitors, which is the number one thing, or they do these other things. But you want this open ended so you can keep getting better and better and better. And I think you can look at some people on the tour and you know there's a ceiling. They're great, but they're always going to be in that 10 to 30 range. You know they're not going to win a grand slam. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, 100%.
Uh,
You mentioned the players you're working with, the 8-year-old. and we get into Sofia as well from Ukraine. That working with like creating more of a versatile style, like being able to slice, get to the net, and you saw, for example, with Ash Barty now retired, that she had a huge success that she could vary the game enough. Like she could actually hit a good like a strong forehand, but she could vary with a lot of slice and make it very uncomfortable for their opponents. Is that someone you would look up to and build a little bit around, like that type of player?
Absolutely. Remember one thing: she was a great athlete, just great athlete, great at cricket. Doesn't get enough credit, but she had kind of like back in the day, Steffi Graf. She had the type of game that's tailor made, in my opinion, in women's tennis. Just a nasty slice that stayed low. That means you got to bend. Some people don't do that as well. And you got to hit up and you got to bring it back cross court. So then you can run around and bang, you know. But a lot of people only chip the ball, whether it's a bailout or they're nervous or they have to. Where this was an integral part of her game. And it's the number one thing, the hardest sell for me uh, to get, especially on the female side, for them to do this, unless they're kind of stylish and they have a flair or they have a one hand, a backhand. Obviously, they have to, but they'd rather bend down and roll it, which I'm not saying is bad, but it does bounce up in the strike zone and the girl's not going to be as uncomfortable. But if you could chisel it on a regular basis, okay, um, it's huge. It makes you uncomfortable because a tennis match is so much about a rhythm. You know, the rhythm of the point, da 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 da, boom, hit, da 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 da, boom, hit, and and then you can come in with the drop shot, and this is so important. If a female wants to learn that, great technique on the backhand, great technique on the forehand, but you could slice the ball 5, 6 times in a row on purpose, not because you're nervous or feeling pressure or a bailout. That's what I call it. That's tailor made for women's tennis. And you see sometimes these matchup, even if a girl's 70, 80 in the world, playing a top 10 player, just her style is a little funky because she's chiseling the ball around the court, and hitting more spin. You almost saw that last year with Coco. She almost lost first round. Then she goes on and wins the tournament. Some people like the ball coming faster to them so you don't have to think. Now, if it's faster and real far away, I think they'd rather have it slow to them. But this is a big thing in junior development, but it's a tough, tough sell to the kid and sometimes even tougher to the parent because people want every ball to go in and never to miss a shot. And if you're never missing a shot, 14 and under, 12 and under, or you're never double faulting, trust me, you're not doing the right stuff.
Yeah, it's a good point. I think you need failure to succeed, right? Like you need to fail on the way to success. You can't just be winning everything all the time. And I think you've seen that with all the greats that they took periods where they had maybe some rough losses or some tough
Yeah.
moments,
Yep.
and they built on that.
Yeah. Listen, I got to tell this. Now you brought this up. This is back in the day. There was someone watching Venus practice. She was like 12, and he was a Broadway ballet performer, whatever that means. Okay. He was there watching her practice. And listen, no one made more mistakes than Venus when she was with me. She used to spray the ball everywhere. Okay. It was crazy. But she was developing the one thing, and that's what I teach all my players, the big C, courage, not afraid to hit the ball. Now, if someone's hyper and excited and they don't handle pressure, sure, you got to put the governor on the emergency brake and slow them down. But V would just rip everything. She wasn't afraid to rip the ball, and she made so many mistakes. And she was done with practice. I came off the court and I was getting ready to go home. And the guy introduced himself. He told me what he did. He goes, "Listen, I saw this publicity about this girl. She's not any good. She doesn't know how to move on the tennis court." And then he told me about his movement. And I said, "Okay, I get it, but this isn't ballet. Okay, there might be some ballet movement in tennis." There's no, she's gangly. I said, "Listen, tennis has never seen this. This little girl runs like a gazelle. Wait till she puts on 15 pounds and she's 14, 15. You'll see." He just wanted to disagree with me. And then he said, besides that, she's so out of balance all the time, she makes too many errors. So All I'm saying, I hear everybody, but I only listen to a few people. And the first one I listened to myself. I've seen this so many times where someone like Capriati back in the day, she was a machine. She could hit 50 in a row on a string because she technically, her fundamentals were so good. Okay. She was the best vanilla ever. She was like a machine. So I get it. When people see it go in, you're good. If it's out, you're bad. I look at it differently. If you got courage and you have belief, okay, to me, that's going to shine its brightest down the road when it means the most. And no one had that courage and belief more than Venus and Serena on big points. They didn't go into prevent defense. You know, they went after their shots, and that starts long ago.
That's a very good story. I like it because it also shows that the road is long, right? You don't need to have success all the time. And there might be a dip at 15 or 17 or 12 or whatever. And the parent gets frustrated or the coach maybe in some cases. And while it's more like it's part of the process, but you need confidence. Like, so for you, when you worked with that, do you always feel like confident that your students will get there? Like, or you feel like you've done this long enough, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I coach very different. You know, I if they miss it, and I know like they did the right thing and they're going for their shot, I say, listen, 3 more inches, 10 more pounds. You're there balanced with so much confidence. You'll put it in that corner every time. I said, you failed, but you're going to succeed. I've seen this movie so many times, you know, and I tell the kids that and I develop the belief. Then when they start making it, then it changes everything. I never put anybody in a box. And that's what a lot of coaches do. They have them try not to lose to win. And you got to be careful with that. You know what I mean? Because let's face it, when most of these players get 15, 16, or even on the tour, or even the commentators on TV, it's the same exact thing. Be more aggressive. Take the ball early. Control the center of the court. Dictate the points. No one ever says they got to keep the ball and play longer, back up, and hit heavy topspin higher over the net. I've never heard that once on television, and no one ever, you never hear that. It's the same song and dance. Control the points, get on your front foot, attack the serve. It's always about be more aggressive, unless you're missing more balls. And they say that only about Sabalenka or maybe someone that's missing. But you got to give the person on the other side credit. So that's what I try to do. I teach confidence and I teach courage before they get confidence and courage. And I've just done this with so many kids to get them to believe, and I feel that's one of the staples of why I've had so many good young kids develop not only quicker, but that trans because obviously they were already had a lot of genetics and they had a lot of good things, but that doesn't mean you're going to be great. And that's one of the reasons why I think I've had this success. And I got a lot of kids right now that are the best in the country or they're in the world for their age. And that little 8-year-old I just told you about, I've never seen anything like this. I've never seen anything like it. It's a total package, and I just got to develop a game that's very different because tennis is going to be different when she's on the pro tour because she's only 8 years old. But she's a special young lady.
Yeah, that's nice to hear. So especially young lady, like so Sophia from Ukraine that you've been working with. How's it going?
I
Like
just I
you
just had her today from 5 o'clock to 7.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Still positive, still going in the right direction.
Yeah, no, she just came back from Europe. Okay, the situation her she has so many options and she's so acrobatic. You know, it's about getting on balance. Trying, I want her to perfect vanilla because she'll drop shot 3 times in the first game, and I go, whoa. You know, so no, she has many tools in her toolbox. The versatility is there. Okay, uh, and she's like for 14 under, she's one of the best in Europe. But her potential is unlimited because she's so fast and a great first step and has makeup speed. And as you know, that's going to make you win matches on a bad day when you're nervous. I love her potential. I just got to keep making her rock solid because she has too many options. But I kind of like that for the big picture because she's going to match up against people down the road. but she needs to be able to stay in there. And if they hit 10, she's going to hit 11.
Yeah, I think that's a great point as well, that you have to obviously adjust. Like we talked about just the paragraph before about hitting hard, taking the ball early, being the aggressor, and showing your initiative. But then for some players who have a lot of talent, good hands, everything, too many options can lead to havoc in the brain, especially I guess at a young age. I mean, you can see that with, I guess, Alcaraz developed through that, because he now has millions of options and he can do them well, right? But at some point, you also might need to dial it back a bit and say, okay, you don't need to be super creative at this point. Just hold it back a bit and it will be there anyway, right?
Absolutely. At least I got her trying it. But you just mentioned Alcaraz, and this is what they say on TV. When he's a little too adventurous, whatever that means, or when he does a drop shot at the wrong time, whatever that means, because everything in life, as you know, is in the eye of the beholder. And what I tell people, what you may see is different than Rick may see. So, but when it goes in, everybody's oohing and ahhing, when he hits it 90 miles an hour in the corner. And if he misses it, they'll go, oh, he should have reeled it in 80, a little higher with more spin. That's life. Everybody wants it both ways. But his greatness is what hurts him because he has so many things and such extreme confidence and belief. But let's face it, the wild card is the mental part. You know, he loves pressure. He has fun. He has the passion. Um, and people, I would love, he's a great role model for anybody, not just developing all these shots, but his passion and love for the game. And that helps you handle pressure better because you're all about the competition. Instead of like you said about Fernandez, I don't think she loved the competition that third set. Something happened. And everybody's human. Everybody goes off track. But the great ones don't go off track as much. And that's why they stay on track.
Yeah, I agree 100% because I think it's also, when you said that before as well, like if you're running away from the match, like you're feeling like things aren't going your way and you want to run away instead of embracing it. Like you see with Alcaraz, he's just laughing sometimes about it and just, okay, he knows the game is about finding the way because he has the game for it, right? So he needs to find that way, and enjoying it and embracing the competition is not easy for everyone, right? That's something you might have to work a lot on.
Absolutely. When you said about laughing about it, whatever, some people could take that it's not serious because it's not from your heart. From him, it's from the heart. Maybe someone like Kyrgios or Bublik, that's a sign of tanking, okay, that they don't care. So that can cut both ways. Once again, eye of the beholder, the coach. You got to know if it's from the heart. Junior tennis isn't just about strokes and strike. There's so much more, especially with what I do and still do to this day, 50 hours a week. It's very different to build a player. It's all about a vision and knowing how to handle this whole situation. It's not just like straightforward, this is the way you do it. It's to me, it's very complicated. So there's so many things that can blow up and make it go sideways, and it's such a long-term process, and that's what everybody has to understand.
So for Rick Macy now, you're going to the US Open. What's else are you how do you have time for everything, right? Like you're always on the court, you're traveling, you're on doing media, you're doing everything. So how do you keep up?
No, well, first off, it's the only Grand Slam I really go to because I'm so busy. But uh, pretty much the go-to guy with Fox News and Fox Business. I do a lot of stuff, and even I would go in the studio in West Palm, with the other Grand Slams and just comment it and give my opinion, who the favorites are, and just give expert analysis on that. And that's good enough for me because I like staying in the nest. I'm still like very, very busy. A lot of people visit. We had a great summer, and I got kids here. I just love being on the tennis court, and I have just as much passion today as I did when I started at age 22. And I'm glad I feel like this. Uh, the $1 Billion Mind, the book, it's becoming like a bestseller. Me and Dr. Niv, that's like taken off. We're going to do other things together. I love doing podcasts, talking to you guys, because it's my way to give back. Um, so you can give to anybody, and I might be able to help other people who don't come to court one and see kind of what I do every single day. Now, that being said, there is another project. There hasn't been any press releases. A few people know about it, but I'm going to throw it at you. So you're like one of the first ones to get kind of breaking news. Uh, it's going to be TV show, 10 of them, called The Phenom Maker, the good, the bad, the ugly. Okay. Amazing kids, amazing journey, uh, the crazy parents, all the insanity and the sacrifice, the blood, sweat, and tears that goes into this. Okay. Um, it's going to be incredible, and people really see what I do and what these kids go through and the sacrifice and the other people involved with me. Vitor Belfort, who was number one MMA fighter, he was a phenom back in the day. uh, his son's actually the number one high school quarterback that went to Virginia Tech, a college. So he does stuff with me with fitness and boxing, and he does stuff, and the obviously the coaches that work with me. But the wild card is Venus and Serena are involved with me also with their name on the project. So this thing's going to go nuclear, very different than anything that's ever been done in tennis because of the pedigree that I'm bringing to the table. And people are going to see this thing. And it's not just about tennis, even though it's about tennis and it will all happen at the park at the Rick Macci Tennis Center. It will be so inspiring and motivating and just kind of what this is all about. And I already got a lot of kids here that will probably be in it, even though a lot of kids will be in this. It's going to be must see TV. It won't happen until next year, but we're still putting the final pieces together. But we're off to the races. It's going to be called the Phenom Maker, and with the power of the Williams sisters involved, um, I'm just more than excited to be able to share this project, and it's going to be beyond epic.
Awesome. Good news. Congratulations. That sounds great.
Yeah, thank
Look
you.
forward to that as well. I think many people are curious to what's going on and also can relate about these stressful situations with kids that are very they want to be pros, but the parents also want them to be pros. And it's like it requires a certain type of coach or personality to calm or diffuse the situation and mold it into something good, right? So I think this could be a very interesting storyline.
Absolutely. And, I got so many stories about ranking or, someone that was here and now they're, top 20. I mean, let's face it, VW and Serena, they've never played any junior tournaments. They never got on an airplane and played ITF. They never did anything. I could give story after story after story when you're so caught up. Because let's face it, if you're one of the best in the country in your age group, the parents are already booking tickets for Wimbledon, but they're probably going to be watching on TV like me and you. So, I just try to explain it differently and to get better every day. That's all you want to do. Let's get better. Let's try to get better, you know, and there's a fine line between winning and losing. And that's the message. And this will come loud and clear uh, in this project, but just the insanity and the ups and the downs and the highs and the lows that go into this, it's going to be amazing.
It was a great message to end on, and I really love having you on, Rick. Always nice talking to you. You're a busy guy, I know that, and you're always on the court. So thanks a lot for this time around. I hope to see you again soon, and good luck with the show and with the U.S. Open now.
Yeah, thank you so much. We'll do it again, and we'll see if my predictions come true. Not that I
Oh,
went out on a limb with Alcaraz and Iga, but you never know.
no, but the Mukova and the Korda predictions I like because you stick to your guns, right? I like that. So we'll keep my eyes on that for sure.
You got it. Good seeing you again.
Stay, man. Enjoy. Have a nice day.
All right,
Talk
be
soon.
in touch.